Well, one day after one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history, people everywhere are asking why it happened again and what can be done to stop the carnage. Aaron Jones has the latest.
Sadness and grief overwhelm Uvalde, Texas and the nation following another mass shooting. An 18-year-old gunman barged into an elementary school Tuesday with an assault-style rifle and high-capacity magazines.
It just started shooting children and teachers that were inside that classroom, having no regard for human life, just a complete tragedy.
Authorities say the gunman shot and wounded his grandmother before the school rampage. They are investigating what led up to the massacre.
No friends, no girlfriends at this time that we know of, was unemployed, no criminal history, no gang affiliation. So we're trying to determine exactly what the motive was.
At least 21 people, including 19 young children, died. In an address to the nation last night, President Biden called on lawmakers to take action.
Why do we keep letting this happen? Where in God's name is our backbone to have the courage to deal with it and stand up to the lobbies? It's time to turn this pain into action.
Some parents waited all night here at the Civic Center to see if their child survived the massacre. Authorities even using DNA samples to try and identify some of the victims.
My daughter, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez. Her name, she's only 10 years old.
Jesse Rodriguez eventually got word his daughter was one of the victims. As this community learns more about who was killed inside the school, they are grappling with a sudden and unbearable loss. Aaron Jones, CBS News, Uvalde, Texas.
This afternoon, President Joe Biden says Congress has the power to prevent another tragedy like the one in Texas, and the Senate Majority Leader says they are moving quickly on legislation. But a Texas senator is instead calling for more armed law enforcement in schools.
We need to devote far more law enforcement resources to stopping violent criminals, to preventing these kind of absolute acts of evil.
Senator Ted Cruz making those statements despite the Robb Elementary School staffing armed officers that worked to stop the active shooter yesterday morning. Cruz, along with Governor Greg Abbott and former President Donald Trump, are scheduled to speak at the NRA conference in Houston this Friday. Victims' names are starting to emerge this morning as anguished parents in Uvalde, Texas were asked to submit DNA to help identify their children. Lilia Luciano has more from Uvalde.
Parents gathered at Uvalde Civic Center late into the night Tuesday to await word on their children's fate. A volunteer we spoke with took these images as parents worked with authorities to gather DNA samples to help them identify the victims.
The scene was pretty horrific, and I understand that some of the bodies were hard to recognize.
Among the confirmed victims, 9-year-old Emery Jo Garza. Her father posted this photo to Facebook with a single word comment: why? Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez was just 10 years old. Shortly after the shooting, her father's desperation was clear as he arrived at the school grounds.
I gotta find her. After the shooting, they don't know where she's at.
Eva Mireles taught 4th grade at Robb Elementary School, trained in bilingual and special education. On the school's website, she wrote that she had a supportive, fun, and loving family. Her husband, Ruben Ruiz, is an officer of the Uvalde Police Force. Officials say the gunman went from classroom to classroom, shooting indiscriminately. As parents spoke with authorities, the horror of what happened to their children became clear.
There were some families that were upset and raising their voices, some of the law enforcement officials, where they would be given the information as far as a confirmation of death, and then the families would break down. Imagine the worst of the worst that could ever happen to a parent.
We know that some of those students are still recovering in this hospital. It's a predominantly Latino community that's still suffering, that's in grief, and that has been changed forever. We also know from the district that today there will be grief counselors. Today was supposed to be the second to last day of school, but of course school was canceled indefinitely yesterday. Lilia Luciano, CBS News, Uvalde, Texas.
And this afternoon, Governor Asa Hutchinson weighing in on the horrific shooting. He tweeted this, saying, quote, "As a father and grandfather, I am devastated by the tragic and senseless shooting yesterday in Uvalde, Texas. We are increasing school security plans in Arkansas to ensure our children will be safe at school," end quote.